I'm 42 years old. I raised my 3 kids by myself. You not know one time knew what I had to struggle and go through. My son Jeffrey had holes in his shoes and growing up going to school.
That's his dad's fault.
Mama had to, yeah.
Miss Elson said, Kaysen is not yours anyways. I blanked your homeboy. Blank, you dirty dog. I'ma still put you on child support because we married. That's the only reason I married you, blank. What kind of conversation is this?
Right from the start, you could tell this was going to be a mess. Miss Hooker says the late Mr. Abraham is the father of her baby, but his mom, Ms. Baker, isn't buying it. The tension is real, and this courtroom is about to get heated.
Miss Hooker, you are here with your mother because you say the defendant's son, Mr. Abraham, fathered your 10-month-old daughter, Kanaya. You say that Ms. Baker and her family's public denial of this child has caused you pain, and you are here for an apology and to prove her son is the father.
Miss Hooker is tired of people treating her like she's lying about her baby. She says her daughter looks just like Abraham, so what's the problem? The family, on the other hand, is giving serious side eyes.
I'm just sad sometimes. I try to deal with it now. Like, I really don't care no more. That's how I feel. I don't care anymore. I don't care who feel nothing about my baby. I don't care. It just seemed like everybody else looking upside my head like I'm an animal or something. Like, every time I'm sitting down doing something, they looking at me like I'm the outcast of the group. She looked like me, so why is it a problem? That's why I just say I don't care about nothing.
Their relationship was all over the place. Best friends, dating, not dating, talking again. By the time she got pregnant, they weren't together, but they were still talking. Just when things settle, a plot twist hits.
First, we was best friends. 6th grade year, we was best friends. And then we started talking. Then we started going together for a minute. And then, like, when I got pregnant, it was just like, we always talked, but we just stopped going together. But we still talking, though, but we just stopped going together. Like, we weren't boyfriend or girlfriend.
Okay, but then you still talked?
Yeah.
Were you in love, or was
Yeah.
this was your first love?
Yeah.
Ms. Baker drops a bomb. Another guy told Abraham he was also with Miss Hooker. Miss Hooker laughs like, were you in the room? Just when you think that's bad, emotions take over.
You know,
What did the other young man say?
he told Keyshawn that when he wasn't around, he was supposedly sleeping with Denita.
Was there another guy?
You know, 'cause that's why it's funny, because how can somebody tell me who I was sleeping with? Nobody in the room was in the room with me when I was sleeping with somebody. What do I have to lie for?
Abraham's sister says looking at the baby is painful because it reminds her of her brother. She swears no one is being mean on purpose, but Miss Hooker isn't feeling that excuse. Then, the conversation turns to an even messier topic, the obituary.
Sometimes it's hard for people to look, for me personally, to look at baby because it's just a reminder that my brother's not here. So it's not about her and her feelings. When she does come around, it is a sense of sadness for me. So it's not that somebody looking at her crazy. They're just dealing with the murder of their loved one. So it's not.
Miss Hooker is livid her baby was left out of Abraham's obituary. Ms. Bland straight up admits she did it because she wasn't sure the baby was his. Before this turns into a full-on brawl, something surprising happens.
It's not that she feels some type of way. It's like she more hurt behind the obituary. Miss Bland left her out of the obituary on purpose.
I just feel like this. When this come back and it's the baby, I don't want her. I don't want no sorries from nobody. Keep your sorries. I don't want no sorry.
I'm not giving you a sorry.
Okay, I'm not asking you to.
Shut up.
Hold on,
She
hold
can
on.
say something to me because I'm a child. I'm gonna keep talking to her because she thinks she's hard and I will punch her in her face. I don't care.
Oh,
I don't
no.
care.
Ms. Baker says if the test proves paternity, she'll fix the obituary. It sounds nice, but Miss Hooker isn't sure she believes it. And just when things seem calm, it's DNA test time.
Since she got left out the obituary, I have already told them if it comes back saying Kenaya belongs to Keyshawn, I'm going directly back to the funeral home. So when this baby grow up and she read her dad's obituary, there's her name.
Mr. Abraham is 0%.
And this is why right here.
Miss Baker, are you all right?
This case is already a mess, and we just started. Mr. Connor says he's been stuck paying for a kid that isn't his, while Ms. Wallace says he knows the truth and needs to pay up. The judge hasn't even said much yet, and they're already arguing like it's Thanksgiving dinner gone wrong.
Mr. Connor, you say a one-time fling with the defendant turned into more than 15 years of child support payments and even jail time for a child you have never believed is yours. You need today's results to prove you are not her child's father.
Imagine paying for something for 15 years that you don't even think is yours. Yeah, that's Mr. Connor's life. He lost his house, car, job, and even went to jail because of unpaid child support. Ms. Wallace says he's just making excuses, but this argument is about to get even wilder.
It's times when I can't afford things. I've even been to jail. 2005, November the 5th until January 2006. There was no home for me to go to. I lost my car, I lost my job. I was 36 years old, I had to start all over. I know for a fact that she knows he's not my son.
Ms. Wallace isn't holding back. She says their fling was more than a one-time thing, and Mr. Connor knew it. She gets emotional talking about raising Jeffrey alone, struggling while he had holes in his shoes. Mr. Connor is standing his ground, but things are about to get real personal.
Your Honor, he just wants off child support. For one, it was more than just a one-night fling. I'm 42 years old. I raised my 3 kids by myself. You not know one time knew what I had to struggle and go through. My son, Jeffrey, had holes in his shoes and growing up, going to school.
That's his dad's fault.
Mama had to, yeah.
Now we have 2 completely different stories, and somebody is lying. Mr. Connor says they barely hooked up and didn't even finish, but Ms. Wallace says they were together for a whole year. It's getting awkward, and we're about to hear a twist that makes things even crazier.
There wasn't a relationship. I met her through a family member. She changed her mind, and that was that. I never knew anything about Jeffrey. She had a friend who told me, "Did you sleep with Wanda?" I said, "No, not really, sorta." Then I told her what happened, and then she said, "Well, I just wanted to tell you, she was pregnant already."
Ms. Wallace says she found out she was pregnant, called Mr. Connor, and told him. He says that never happened. The arguing gets so bad that the judge has to step in before someone flips a table. But just when you think the drama is at its peak, here comes the child support bombshell.
Remember him and I being in a whole year relationship, and we had sex numerous of times, Your Honor. And he did know. Well, I got sick. How I found out that I was pregnant. I got sick. My mom taking me to my doctor's appointment, and that's when I found out I was 2 months pregnant. I called Jewett and I told Jewett.
Mr. Connor says the only time he saw Jeffrey was when the kid was 5 at his mom's funeral. Since he never showed up to court, he was automatically named the dad and got stuck with child support. He swears he was never served papers. But now we're about to hear how Jeffrey found out who his dad was.
I seen him when he was 5. Came to my mother's funeral, repast.
Did you all ever have conversations about Jeffrey at all?
Yes, me and her.
Yes, he told me that he wanted to be in his son's life. I told him I did not want to be in a relationship with him, you know.
You're a professional liar.
Jeffrey found out who his dad was outside a liquor store when a family member casually pointed at Mr. Connor like, "Hey, that's your dad." Mr. Connor's reaction? A quick hey, like they were meeting at a family BBQ. Poor Jeffrey is confused, but things are about to get even more emotional.
First time that I met Jewett here, that I recall meeting was, I was like, 10 years old at that point. I remember my mom, some other family members were riding around East St. Louis. We decided to stop through, drive through a liquor store. One of my family members was like, "Hey, that's your dad."
Does he say hello to you?
Yeah, he said, "Hey." It wasn't like a conversation further than that.
Mr. Connor's wife says Jeffrey showed up at their house one day, and she had no idea who he was. Later, she saw Jeffrey post on Facebook asking why his dad never wanted him, so they finally told him they didn't think he was theirs. Now Jeffrey has to process that his entire life might have been a lie.
When Jeffrey was 10, we came home one day to the house, and he was sitting on the couch, and I just asked Jewett, who is that? And he said, "That's Jeffrey." And I already knew the situation. He had already told me he was paying child support for Jeffrey already. I reached out to him on social media because he wrote a big paragraph on Facebook saying, "Where's my dad? And why was I never part of your family?" And
Jeffrey opens up about how watching an episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air made him realize how much it hurt not having a dad. The judge reminds everyone that his pain isn't about his mom. She was always there, but about never having a father figure. And now, after 15 years of confusion, it's finally time for the DNA test.
There was this particular scene from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, having a conversation with his dad, and his dad is like trying to leave and basically not be a part of his life anymore. I decided to express myself on Facebook, and then Ms. Trina said she did reach out to me. They kind of both told me at that point that it's a possibility I may not be his child, and that was the first time I ever heard that. So it was kind of like just earth-shattering at that point for me.
The judge reveals the DNA results, and boom!
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Connor, you are not the father.
I already knew it.
This was already a disaster before it even started. Mr. Deggs thought he was Jason's dad, but 6 months later, his ex was like, maybe not. And oh boy, things were only going to get worse.
Mr. Deggs, you are here today hoping you are the biological father of the defendant's 3-year-old son, Jason. You have petitioned the court for a paternity test because you claim your ex, Ms. Guerin, first led you to believe that you were Jason's dad, but when the baby was 6 months old, she confessed that you may not be the biological father.
This man went to grab his last box and instead got hit with, "Hey bro, we all been with your girl." Turns out both his best friend and his brother had slept with Ms. Guerin. The audience gasped so loud, people probably heard it from outside.
At the time, we were moving out of my best friend's apartment. Just about that, I got the truck loaded up with everything. And I went upstairs to grab my last box, and my best friend at the time pulled me aside and told me him and my brother had both slept with me.
What?
He cheated in the very beginning of our relationship.
Ms. Guerin admits cheating, but blames it on being young and needing attention. Meanwhile, Deggs is like, "I was at work to pay our bills." The excuses were wild, but trust me, this was just the beginning.
I do admit that I did do those things. I did cheat on him with his best friend and his brother. I was very young at the time. Honestly, it just happened. I didn't do it out of spite towards him or anything. He was never home. He was always...
I worked full time to make sure that
he never
she was happy.
came home, and he left me in the apartment all the time with a roommate that he knew was attracted to me and wanted to be with me.
Just when you think it can't get worse, boom, she also slept with his brother because he paid attention to her. The audience couldn't believe it, and neither could Judge Lake.
How did you end up with his brother, too?
His brother, I was really young at the time, and
you keep talking about how young you were. If you were so young, you shouldn't have been sleeping with everybody.
Okay.
How did you end up sleeping with his brother?
It was an attraction. He was paying me the attention that Jason was not.
At this point, everyone was screaming, "Leave her." But nope, Deggs stayed because he loved her, and somehow things were about to get even crazier.
I loved her that much that I wanted to work on it again.
Wow.
Because I loved her that much.
Because he knew he cheated from the gate.
No, because I loved you. Not until after. That's when I strayed. When you slept with my best friend and my brother is when I strayed.
I realized, Deggs, maybe you cheated as well. However, that would not affect the paternity of the child we're talking about.
This girl hit a new level of wild. While still with Deggs, she met another guy and, well, did what she does best. And yet, Deggs still had no clue what was coming next.
I found out I was pregnant. We had a lot of problems at that time. We had already cheated on each other. And then I met somebody else that was taking care of me. I ended up sleeping with him while I was with Jason.
I've been there since day one, taking care of this baby and this woman. And then she has the nerve to wait.
Mr. Deggs, you thought this child was yours.
Something.
Yes, Your Honor, I sure did.
6 months later, mid-argument, Ms. Guerin just casually says, "You might not even be the dad." No warning, no soft landing, just straight up heartbreak. Deggs is crushed, and the audience is in shock.
During the entire pregnancy and for 6 months after that, you allowed him to believe that he was the father of this child, knowing in your mind that maybe he wasn't.
I think we were in an argument, and out of nowhere she throws at me, "You're probably not even the daddy of Jason anyway."
Ms. Guerin's new boyfriend stands up and says he's been the real dad. Meanwhile, Deggs looks like he's about to flip a table. And just when you think it can't get worse, the DNA results come in.
I do things that a father is supposed to do.
Right.
I never try and take the place of his biological father because I'm not his biological father.
And what is it that you do?
I take care of him. You know, when Megan's working, if I have the day off, then of course I'm taking care of him. If he needs to go to an appointment or something, make sure he gets there. It's fun to be around. Of course, he's a 3-year-old. He tests your patience sometimes, but...
Judge Lake drops the bomb.
When it comes to baby Jason Deggs, Mr. Deggs, you are not the father.
This mess was already crazy, and now it's even worse. The judge reminds them that last time, Mr. Elston found out he wasn't Carson's dad. Now, they're back with a new baby and the same drama.
Mr. and Ms. Elston, you previously appeared in this courtroom with concerns surrounding the paternity of 2-year-old Carson.
We started sleeping together 2 weeks after we met.
Well, who else did you have sex with?
My friend's boyfriend. It was on Valentine's Day. We had a threesome. She knew about it.
Mr. Elston looks at the baby and feels nothing. Ouch. He thinks Carson and Season look alike, so how can he trust this? Even their names are too close, and it's giving him flashbacks.
I mean, I don't have a bond with him, and I don't feel like he's mine. They look alike to me, so they must have the same father. Baby names are, identical. It's
You named
something here
him.
that she's not telling me, so.
We agreed on the name. I tried changing it plenty of times. Told me he didn't want to change it.
No, her friend chose the name, Your Honor.
The truth is, because it's so close to Carson, Kaysen, then you look at him, you think they look alike.
Ms. Elston first said her cousin took her to the hospital, but actually, it was her ex. Now Mr. Elston is questioning everything about this pregnancy.
When I was at work, I was 3 hours away. She texted me talking about she pregnant. So I was like, I can't leave work just to take you to the hospital. So she said, I'll call my cousin and see if he can take me. So when I get home, we just started arguing because I told her this just don't seem right. And she was like, that wasn't even my cousin that took me to the hospital anyways. It was my ex. So
Ms. Elston told him, Season isn't yours, just like Carson wasn't. Then she added, I only married you to put you on child support. If she was trying to make things better, this was not the way.
Because one day we got the arguing bad and I left the house and she texted me and she was like, that's why Carson wasn't yours, Kaysen's not yours either. And she said, I married you just so I could put you on child support just in case you tried to leave me. And we're separated now and, I'm trying to file for a divorce, so.
Really? I we're separated when you come over the house every day.
I have.
Oh, but it gets worse. She also texted that she slept with his friend. Then she said, I'm putting you on child support no matter what. The judge looks tired of all this nonsense.
Miss Elston said, Kaysen is not yours anyways. I blanked your homeboy. Blank, you dirty dog. I'ma still put you on child support because we married. That's the only reason I married you, blank. What kind of conversation is this?
Now Mr. Elston's friend is dragged into the chaos. She says Ms. Elston admitted to cheating while pregnant. Ms. Elston fires back, saying the friend is actually sleeping with her husband.
She admitted to a friend?
My friend came to the house one weekend. It's a female. She pulled me downstairs when Carly was asleep and told me that Carly had vented to her that she's been cheating. She's been,
Your Honor, this is the same friend that he's sleeping with. So no, she wants to break us up because she wants to say that that he's not the dad and all this stuff, which she doesn't know nothing about.
The friend says Ms. Elston straight up confessed to cheating. Ms. Elston starts yelling that it's all lies. The courtroom is now one giant reality show.
The day that I arrived at their house to spend the weekend with them, Ladarian had left because they were already arguing. She started talking to me saying he's just a dog, he doesn't do anything for her or the kids. Basically saying that Kaysen was not Ladarian's, that she was sleeping with other men, that Ladarian and Kaysen look nothing alike.
The room is silent as the judge opens the envelope.
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Elston, you are the father.
Narissa was just minding her business when bam, some guy on Facebook claims he's her dad. He even sends a baby picture like, see, it's you. Now she's in court like, okay, what is even happening?
Ms. Moffitt, you always believed the defendant was your dad until 2 years ago when you received a message from a man claiming to be your biological father. You are tired of the confusion and are petitioning the court for a paternity test to prove the defendant is your dad.
Mr. Johnson is like, yeah, I might not be her dad. There were other guys. Turns out Ms. Moffitt was seeing 3 men at the time. So now we're all wondering, who's the real dad here?
Me and 2 more other guys was, at the time was dealing with Miss Moffitt. I just had doubts that I was her biological father at the time when she was little. I didn't know. I really didn't. I didn't know if I was the father or not, so.
Oh, and did we mention Mr. Johnson was married? They had secret dates at Burger King because romance, I guess. 2 years later, she moved away, but the drama stayed.
Though I knew he was married at the time.
Oh.
So it was a lot of sneaking around, hiding. And we used to, favorite spot to meet up was like at Burger King. And while he'll go home and get ready, change clothes and come back and we just go out and kick it.
How long did this relationship go on?
The relationship went on strong for like about 2 years. And then I left and went to Mississippi.
This is where things get wild. She slept with Mr. Johnson and another guy on the same day. Like, no time gap, just straight up confusion. So now, even she's like, oops, I don't know who the dad is.
You had sex with Mr. Saunders and Mr. Johnson on the same day?
Yes, Your Honor, right, the same day. I told them both exactly because I wasn't sure who was the father. Once the baby was born, as soon as Mr. Saunders seen her eyes, he like, oh, that's my baby. And I'm like saying to myself.
Ms. Moffitt shows up one day, hands Mr. Johnson a picture and says, this might be your kid. Oh, And also, it might be Mr. Saunders' kid too. So now Mr. Johnson is sitting there like, wait, what?
So you gave him a picture?
Yes, I brought it to him. I showed him.
You brought it to him, and what did you say when you brought the picture?
I told him, I said, here's Rissa, and here's your child, that you could be possible father. And then also I did let him know about Mr. Saunders at the same time.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
And there's also another potential father, Mr. Saunders. Is that what you said?
Yes, Your Honor.
When Nerissa was sick, Mr. Johnson rushed to be by her side. Mr. Saunders, the guy who swore he was her dad, yeah, he was MIA.
Until Rissa got real sick. Went to the hospital and spent time with her. I said to myself, man, this child is laying up here fighting for her life, and she don't know really who her father was. And she said she wanted her father there, her stepdad. And he told me, he said, Ron, you need to get to Indiana as soon as possible.
Nerissa is done. She's been kept in the dark her whole life. She's like, I'm 28. Why am I just finding this out? And honestly, we all feel her pain.
It just hurts. Stressful to wait this long, and I'm 28. I should have figured this out when I was little.
Ms. Moffitt, as you look at your daughter, how much of a toll this has taken on her emotionally, this secret?
Yes, Your Honor, I know it hurt, and I didn't mean for it to hurt her. I just didn't feel that, they pretty much wasn't even worthy because they never was there.
Judge Lake reads the results, and boom.
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Johnson, you are her father.
Yes! This case was off the charts crazy from the start. Ms. Baker says her whole marriage depends on the DNA test, while Mr. Baker is over here like, no way, I had a vasectomy 30 years ago. If he's not the dad, he's walking out the door, and things are about to get real awkward.
Ms. Baker, you say the fate of your marriage is riding on today's DNA results. You are suing to prove that your 3-month-old son, Caleb, was fathered by your husband, Mr. Baker. Say it's medically impossible for you to have a child, and therefore Caleb cannot be yours. You say if the DNA results prove you are not the father, you will leave your wife and family.
Just when you think it can't get worse, Ms. Baker admits she drank so much she blacked out and doesn't remember everything. She has no idea if she was with another guy or not, which is not what you want to hear in a paternity case. And just like that, Mr. Baker's trust issues tripled.
I was drinking pretty much every day, and I was blacking out at night. I wouldn't remember. It's not fair to Mr. Baker, and I love him with all my heart.
Mr. Baker, before this, was there a lack of trust in the relationship?
Felice and I had gotten together. The way that we got together was had done some work in her home, and that's the way that we met. We didn't do everything right.
Plot twist. They actually started their relationship by cheating on their own spouses. Now they have 12 kids in a blended family, but trust has never been their strong suit. And just when you think that's enough drama, Ms. Baker's past makes a surprise comeback.
I was married, she was married. You have two people who are in a monogamous relationship come together the way that we did. There's always going to cast doubt on the back of your mind. How do I know she wouldn't do this to me? And when we did that, we hurt a lot of people. 12 children today, but 11 children were deeply hurt because of the actions that we made.
Ms. Baker once went on Oprah because she secretly racked up tens of thousands in debt behind her ex's back. Mr. Baker says if she could hide money, what else could she hide? But all that drama is nothing compared to the bombshell about his vasectomy.
Well, I know that she went on a very public show.
The Oprah Winfrey Show.
I remember your husband thought you were a certain amount of money in debt.
Correct, Your Honor.
You were lying, and the number was like
tens of thousands.
Exactly.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Baker had a vasectomy way back in 1991 and was told it was permanent. He's 100% convinced it's impossible for him to have another kid. But then Ms. Baker shows up pregnant, and now science is straight up fighting for its life.
Back in 1991, when my ex was pregnant with our 4th child, while she was pregnant, I had a vasectomy. They literally put it into the realm of impossibility. So since it's been 23 years after a vasectomy, you've got to question, is it even possible for me to even conceive a child?
Ms. Baker actually thought she was going through menopause when she missed her period. Mr. Baker was like, if you're pregnant, it ain't mine. 3 pregnancy tests later, they're both panicking.
Actually, I thought I was going through menopause. Mentioned to Mr. Baker, had my menstrual cycle in 3 months, and he said, well, if you're pregnant, it's not for me. We went to the store, got a pregnancy test, and it at that time came out positive. And so he didn't believe the pregnancy test, so we went over to another store, and both of those came out positive also.
Ms. Baker gets so worried she thinks she has cancer instead of a baby. After hours in the ER, doctors confirm she's 3.5 months pregnant. Mr. Baker's whole world just turned upside down.
Yes, I looked up the same thing the following day, read the cancer. I didn't feel pregnant, had 8 children of my own. I know what it feels like to be pregnant. Once I read that, went to the emergency room. We waited around 5 hours in the emergency room, and Mr. Baker actually left to go get me something to eat. And when he came back, I had already found out that I was 3.5 months pregnant.
A doctor explains that sometimes, in super rare cases, a vasectomy can fail. Turns out, if you don't do your follow-ups, your body might just rewire itself. And guess who never did his follow-up? Yup, Mr. Baker.
A 49 to 50-year-old man really doesn't have issues with fertility typically. 85 sperm counts at that age are going to be normal. As you age, it's really more the quality of the sperm, and that tends to be affected by lifestyle factors. And if it was a successful vasectomy, then the sperm count should be 0, and it would be impossible for him to father a child.
The doctor says Mr. Baker had a 1.5% chance of making a baby. Ms. Baker is convinced this was a miracle from God. Mr. Baker is still looking like he saw a ghost.
So when we look at this, it does not make it impossible for him to father a child. He should have about a 1.5% chance of fathering a child.
But possible.
Possible. It only takes 1 sperm.
Ms. Baker, based upon what you've heard, Dr. Gator explained to us today, how are you feeling now?
I just believe that the Lord had this happen.
And the results say,
it has been determined by this court, Mr. Baker, you are the father.